Welcome to the Family Law Frontline.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Family Law Frontline with Fedor Kozlov. Fedor is the founding partner and chief litigator at the law office of Fedor Kozlov, PC. He's got over a decade of experience in Illinois family law. He handles high-stakes cases involving custody, property division, domestic violence, as well as reproductive rights. My name is Kevin Rosenquist. Today we're diving into what happens when the Department of Children and Family Services is called, or DCFS. Fedor, welcome back. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Kevin. This is one of my favorite topics, DCFS, Department of Children and Family Services. So,
why is that? Why is it one of your favorite topics?
Well, because so many cases that we get on a daily basis, and so many stories, and so many different complaints about it, and a very hot conversation right now about Department of Child and Family Services in Illinois. It involves so much. DCFS is a giant. It's a huge administrative agency that have separate purposes. So it's an agency that licenses your daycare facility. It's an agency that investigates alleged child abuse, and it's agency that can take the child away, put it with the foster parents, or do other things. So it's an agency that can actually recommend a prosecutor to take your case and penalize you criminally. DCFS exists for many years, and at the end of any DCFS investigation, you either indicate it or it's unfounded allegation against you, and DCFS is designed to protect children and children's rights. At the beginning, I think DCFS was sort of on target as far as their protection goes, but the policy was for a very long period of time. Of course, it's unofficial policy, but I spoke to many DCFS workers, and that's where I get in my information. The policy was for many years not to indicate people. So if there is an allegation that the father and mother abused the child, or that the living conditions are not proper, or whatever else, they would come to your home. They would, investigate, speak to the mother, to the father, and then they would leave and say, everything's good. And I think at some point it was a correct decision for them, because I think that a lot of things should be left to the family to decide how to raise your child. Unfortunately, over years, a lot of accidents happen when the DCFS would come in and leave the house, would not proceed with any formal charges, anything like that, and the child then later is dead or killed or starved to death, or crazy cases. And then DCFS was sued by many for negligence. So now DCFS kind of changed its policy. They're the same as they used to be before. They have to close a case. So when the case starts, DCFS has 60 days to investigate the case and close it. How they close it? They close it either by indicating the person, pretty much saying that parents are guilty of doing something wrong for their kids, or send a letter that allegations were unfounded, that nothing happened. But in anyhow, the DCFS workers, from my experience, they are overwhelmed. These poor people, they have hundreds and hundreds of cases. They are pressured by their supervisors to close the case. So before, they would close the case and say the case is unfounded. Now they changed it because of the lawsuits. And again, you can say that it's my speculation, but it's pretty much obvious. The government had to pay a lot of money for negligence investigations, and now they pressured to close cases just as fast as they used to before. But now everybody is indicated. Mm-hmm. From 10 complaints that I would get, maybe one I would get that was unfounded. And now they obligate the hospital workers, nurses, police, teachers report any violations, any suspicion to a violation. So if a child comes to school with a little bruise playing soccer, if teacher speaks to the child and teacher feels like maybe the child doesn't say truth, maybe somebody hit the child while in the household, she's going to call DCFS. DCFS is going to come over. What's interesting about it is that they don't have to let the parents know. They just can.
That is weird.
Yeah, they can just go to school. Well, because they're not police, so they, all these things not involved, all these constitutional protections not involved. DCFS, in fact, if they cannot speak to the child directly right away, they demand that the parents would bring the child over. Of course, when you get it, when you raise the child, nothing bad happened. You get a phone call from DCFS, you sort of become protective
of course,
of your child and yourself.
Yeah,
because you don't want anybody to come into your house anyways and tell you what to do, what not to do, and that nothing happened. But now you're like on the defense side, and there are some crazy allegations that I heard that never happened, and you have to cooperate with DCFS. That's what I was trying to say, but I was kind of catching the words and I was trying to put them back into my mouth because as a lawyer, I would always tell you not to cooperate with the government.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
No, everything you say can be used against you and will be used against you. And everything you say to DCFS is recorded and will be used against you. So for me to say you have to cooperate, I really had to make an effort to say that. But the reason I'm saying it is because one of the factors that they indicate you or not is your cooperation. So if they say that the father hung up on me, or they didn't come for an interview, or they hired a lawyer, it's like a non-cooperation right away. Mm-hmm. And it's just one of the factors. The total, I think, is 15 factors that they look at, but it's an important factor. One thing I can tell you is that you never let DCFS take the child from any place. So that's why it's kind of important when DCFS comes to the school, especially to school, you need to be there first. Mm-hmm. And sometimes teachers or principals will not give you a call. It's a good thing for your child to have a phone if they're allowed. Because if DCFS takes the child into the car, it's called protective custody, and now we have to file a petition to get your child back. Wow. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty much works automatically. And then I had cases, of course, when DCFS worker would come into the house and people would voluntarily let the child go with them. Or we had a crazy case when DCFS, with DCFS investigators, they are very emotional about their cases. And when you tell them no, they take it personally for some reason. They cannot distance themselves from that case. And we had some cases when we would win the case and the indication would be unfounded, no indication. And then DCFS would still come into the house, would still check in, would still make sure, DCFS investigator would still try to make sure that, I'm going to prove my point that, something else going on. And we had one case that we actually had to file in federal court later. The DCFS worker was wrestling for the child while the mother had the child in her hands.
Holy cow.
I know, call it not to be an assault, but she was trying to grab the child away and run out of the door and put the child in the car so the child is in protective custody.
She was that convinced that there was something bad going on.
She was convinced that the mother was a drug addict, and she was convinced in that particular case, or was selling, I don't remember, there was something to do with the drugs. And the mom would go through the test and the test would be negative. And then DCF worker became convinced that the mother is taking something that her results would be negative. And then when she came in, she saw something on the table, allegedly, and that's when the fight occurred. We have a lot of cases, by the way, Kevin, when DCFS takes children from the hospital right after they were born. So, like I said before, the hospitals and nurses and doctors, they obligated to report anything to DCFS. So when the mom, I'm not an expert in how long the particular drug stays in your system. I heard different things about it, that it stays longer in your hair. I heard that marijuana stays about 30 days. Cocaine stays can be up to 5 days. I think if they take the blood. But then depending on the test can be different results and lengths. And then there is also exposure, not necessarily, a person digesting drugs. It can be in the environment where the drugs are, and that's how it gets to your hair. But we had a lot of cases when mothers would go to give birth, and they take your blood, obviously, and the blood results show cocaine. And if it shows cocaine, usually it's cocaine, the DCFS comes in and they take the child. I don't know how it works logistically. Like the child that was just born supposed to be with the mother, but we had a lot of claims when DCFS would come in and take the child from the mother, claiming that the hospital called them and said that there was a result, drug test. I mean, the positive drug result from the blood. So now compare this to criminal court. With DCFS, because it's an administrative agency, the burden of proof is on the department, but the burden of proof is by preponderance of the evidence, which is more likely than not, 51% versus 49. So in criminal court, to charge mother for possession or whatever that is, they have to prove, the government have to prove beyond reasonable doubt, which is 100%. So in criminal court, a person who took the test has to testify in court about the test results. You have to have an expert. You have to, show the chain of custody, things like that to prove it. DCFS doesn't have to do that. So it's a phone call from a doctor. They're not going to tell you who the doctor is until you file formal complaint. They're not going to tell them, because it's all confidential. They're not going to tell you the source from the source who complained about something, but you can guess. But again, there can be so many nurses in the delivery room, so you don't know who that was.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
so
there's a lot of people involved.
Yeah, I know. They give you a call. They send you a paper that says positive, and then based on that, DCFS can take your child away.
Wow.
And even though they say it's the burden of proof on DCFS, remember what I said? Once DCFS takes the child, the child is in protective custody. They can place the child. Yeah. So now you have to go and get the child back.
Wow.
This is how crazy it is.
And you've mentioned the term unfounded a few times. Can you just describe what exactly it means to either be indicated or unfounded as it pertains to a DCFS report? Yeah,
gladly. So unfounded is that they found no evidence of child neglect or abuse. There are many codes that DCFS can say that a parent violated. And again, remember that it doesn't have to be a parent. It can be somebody in the household, and that's also the crazy thing about DCFS. So they can be a brother of a sister or uncle and nephew, whatever combination you can find. And then, DCFS says that something wrong happened between this long distance relative and the child. And they can indicate the father and the mother and that long distant relative. So long distance relative will be accused of doing something wrong directly to the child, while the father and mother will be accused of negligent supervision and things like that. So to prove their innocence, you have to prove first that this uncle didn't do anything, or that they exercised reasonable care. And so I can tell you, I spoke a little bit about daycare situation. So daycares and the daycare owners, they can lose their license, right? If you indicate it and you cannot work with kids for 5 years, you cannot be a nurse for, you can lose your nursing license for 5 years. We had a case, and then like DCFS has these regulations for daycares where certain amount of teachers has to supervise certain amount of kids. And we had this case was the daycare when it was during the nap time, and the kids, there was a video camera, and one of the children woke up and left the premises. Okay, she just walked out on the street.
That's terrifying.
I know, but now we have this daycare owner who had a video camera. She was supervising them. She stepped away. So the whatever, I don't remember how many hours, an hour, whatever the nap time goes at the daycare center facility. But when she was back, she saw right away that the child is missing. She called herself the DCFS. She reported herself to DCFS. She gave them all the video information and everything. The child was found. Nothing happened to the child. The child was found like a few meters from the daycare. Things happen, and she had this daycare for years. She had the daycare for about like 10 or 15 years. I don't remember right now. They suspended her license. And it took us for about a year and a half to finally get her license back. And finally, so what we did, we requested a hearing with administrative law judge. And even though the burden of proof is on DCFS, I felt like we were defending. And by the way, you don't have to testify during DCFS hearings. It's just like criminal court. You don't have to incriminate yourself. You have to remember that whatever you say to the government can be used against you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it's very sometimes it's a judgment call, sometimes it's a very close call. So it all depends on the DCFS worker. We had another case that I spoke about some time ago, where the child was tried to commit a suicide, and she tried to commit a suicide because she was from a different country. In that case, she was from Iraq, and she wanted to, because the parents, she was about to graduate from high school, and her parents said, listen, you're going to go back. Okay. So we as the family going back to Iraq, and once you turn 21, you'll come back. She didn't want to go back. She had her life here.
Her life was here. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then she was a smart child. She knew exactly what's going to happen to her. There's a different tradition. There's different culture. And she was like, I don't want to get married to somebody in Iraq. I know, parents, exactly what you're doing. You want to, I graduated from school. Now the next step for me in this culture, I have to get married. I don't want to get married. I want to pursue a career. I want to go to college, things like that. So the parents said no. And she tried to commit a suicide. She was taken to a hospital, and then she was released back. So DCFS was called. I think it's reasonable for DCFS to investigate a case like that when a child wants to commit a suicide.
Yeah.
But what's interesting was that the parents were indicated, but not for the point of the suicide, not what led to the suicide. They were not indicated for the suicide attempt. They were indicated because they didn't follow proper procedures after. So in the eyes of DCFS, they had to take the child to a psychiatrist. They had to put the child back in a hospital. They had to, the child would have to have some prescriptions. And that family said, we don't believe in prescriptions. We don't believe in intervention from a psychiatrist. It's a family issue, which I agree with them. And they ended up not going back to Iraq. They ended up following the child's wishes. And I think that was the best thing for the child. I think sometimes people that come in from other sources, they can hurt the child rather than help the child. So the indication was that she didn't go to a psychiatrist. And we had to have the whole court proceedings about it. We won the case. indication was removed. It was important for them because it could affect their immigration status as well.
Sure.
So yeah, things like that can affect lives.
Wow.
But yeah, so if you don't care, like you got indicated, so fine. I mean, you can get indicated. We have some cases like that when a girlfriend fights with a boyfriend and the child is in the car. Okay, so it's indication. I'm not sure how is it an indication, to be honest, especially if the child is 2 or 3 years of age. But they say that you put the child in the harmful way. I understand when somebody is holding the child, it all depends on the circumstances. But
Sure.
if something like that happens, you can let it go. Okay, so you got indicated for 5 years. You're not working with kids. You're a citizen of the United States. You're not going to pursue a nursing career. You're not going to be a teacher or anything like that. Unless something happens again, then of course you can be in trouble because now it's violation of the supervision, and there can be other consequences. But if it's something isolated, it's okay, fine, let them indicate you.
Yeah.
But it's like a traffic ticket. You go to court, and either you say I'm guilty, pay the fine, and just be done, get your supervision, or you fight and take your chances. So the same thing here.
Right. Wow. Interesting stories, Fedor, and heavy subject for sure. Thank you for sharing all of those personal stories and all that information. And thank you for listening to the Family Law Frontline. If DCFS has been called in your case, you don't have to face this alone. Visit lawyer-il.com to connect with Fedor Kozlov. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Leave us a review. We have awesome content coming your way. Can't wait to bring it to you. Fedor, I can't wait to talk with you again. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.